Now presenting the entire class of 2020. I freaking graduated college. Hi everyone, it's a girl, Tori. Hi, nice to see you all. That was kind of embarrassing. I promise to never do that again. As you saw, as I was wearing my cap and gown, yes, I have officially graduated college. And right now that we're stuck in a pandemic, I'm unemployed, the world is burning right now, I've pretty much just been left to myself and have been reflecting a lot over the course of the last 4 years about the time that I spent in college. And I wanted to make this video just to kind of talk about what my experience was like those last 4 years. But more importantly, how being a first-generation college student really shaped my experience for better or worse at UCLA. And first-generation college student basically just meaning that I was the first in my family to attend college. I've been given the wonderful opportunity to collaborate with this company called Odin that houses a lot of mental health videos like this one and future ones that I will be making. It's something especially important to me because I don't think I prioritized mental wellness enough when I was a teenager or a college student, but I'm hoping that by telling my stories and taking you on this journey with me to show how I cope better and learn different solutions, that we can all kind of learn how to cope better with anxiety, depression, or other challenges that we're inevitably going to face in life. Let's get into it. My college experience. So I started at UCLA in fall 2016, and then I graduated this last June. Class of 2020, woo! Class of 2020. It's very exciting. This is actually the dress that I would have worn on my graduation day, so I wore it for this video because this is as close as I think I'll get to a graduation. Neither of my parents had attended college, so not only would I be the first in my family to go to college, but I'd also be the first in my family going to such an amazing university that's redeemed to be one of the best in the country, supposedly. I don't know, it's no Ivy. Something important to know about me is that what I value most in life is making my family proud and setting up a successful future for myself and hopefully becoming a financially stable adult at the bare minimum. Do I know what that career is yet, or have any clue what my future plans may be, or have a 10-year plan? No! But what I do know is that my parents and grandparents gave up a lot to come to this country, and I want to do right by them and do right by what they sacrificed and what they did to get here. My parents grew up poor in Mexico and then came here to the US with their families for better work and opportunity, basically. My mom and dad couldn't afford college when they were teenagers. They were definitely not in the position to have their families help them pay for it. So they basically had to find whatever job they could and slowly work themselves up from there and hope for the best. So here I am, the first Vasquez to ever go to college, and everyone was so proud. But very quickly, after all the excitement and actually starting UCLA, I started falling apart pretty quickly. I experienced such major whiplash the more I settled into life at UCLA. Don't get me wrong, I initially had my fair share of fun. I was going to frat parties for the first time, I was drinking for the first time, I was making new friends, but very quickly I found myself getting overwhelmed by the quarter system at UCLA, how hard the classes were, and then just overall feeling very overwhelmed by this new competitive environment. I was a straight A student in high school. I had like a 4.3 GPA. I know, I was a nerd. I always knew myself to be the smart one, and I always took a lot of pride in my academics, but once I started at UCLA, I started feeling very average, and it was in my face constantly. I realized that I think a lot of my happiness really came from doing well academically and making my family proud by going above and beyond all and any expectations people had for me. But it was no longer easy to get those grades that I was used to, especially because UCLA is a culmination of all of the smartest kids from their high schools. So I was in this new competitive environment that I wasn't really used to, and I couldn't really keep up. There were also just some students at UCLA that really made me feel like I didn't belong there, and they said some mean shit to me. But that feels like a whole separate kind of rant video that I could go into about UCLA elitism, but we'll save that for a different time. But basically, I started feeling like I didn't really belong at UCLA, and I was really burning myself out trying to keep up with the rest of the students to get those straight A's that they were getting that I desperately wanted to see for myself again. And I felt like I was trying my best, I was studying all the time, and I just couldn't keep up. The more I wasn't meeting my expectations, the more extreme my thoughts started becoming. because now it turned into every time I failed at something, I felt like I was risking my entire future. Let's take one situation as an example. I had this test that was coming up for this class called Political Strategy, and it was all about game theory and blah, 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 whatever it was. And I felt like I completely understood the material. I had studied the whole 3 nights before. I also really needed to overcompensate in this class because I was already at a C, so I could not go any lower than that overall in the class. So finally it's test day. I had some trouble with a few problems, but overall it felt like an okay experience. I was expecting an A or a B coming out of that test. Then 2 weeks passed and we finally get those tests back and I get it and I see that I got a D on this test. I felt so shitty. I got a D on this test that I had spent 3 nights dedicating, studying, hoping to get an A, and I ended up doing far below my expectations. Initially, I was angry. I saw that grade and I kind of just stormed out of class and put on my angry song in my headphones and just walked back to my dorm. And then when I got back to my dorm, I kind of just stewed over this test and looked at it. And this is when I got into that sort of toxic cycle of thoughts where I was going, great, so since I got a D on this test, my GPA is gonna suck now because my overall grade is gonna suck, GPA is gonna come down, maybe I won't even get my degree at the end of all of this, and if I don't get my degree, I'm not gonna get a good job after all of this. And that's it. My entire future is over. Those were the kind of extremes that my brain was going to, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. I do not take failure well. I was crying over bad exams, I was going into deep depressions right before exams, and I'd spend a lot of time just getting extremely anxious thinking about what a disappointment I had become. Not only was I upset because I wasn't getting the good grades that I wanted and was going into this sort of pit of depression, but I was also just feeling extremely guilty because my parents never had the privilege to go to college, and here I was almost wasting the opportunity that they never got, and they worked so hard to provide for me. I heard all the stories from my parents growing up, the good and the bad ones. They faced a lot of food insecurity when they were younger. I heard about the rooms that they had to share with all of their siblings and just the very little money that they had growing up. Whenever I complained about food, my dad always liked to remind me that him and his siblings only ever got to eat beans, which sounded funny to me as a kid, but I guess growing up was probably true. Yet even through all of that, my parents made it out of their situation and were able to provide for their children more than they ever got as kids. So I was so mad at myself and feeling guilty because here I was crumbling over a little bit of failure, over not getting the grades that I wanted, when my parents had to go through so much more than I ever had to. I just couldn't shake this guilty feeling, and then mix that with the depression from overworking myself. It just kind of brought me to a breaking point. I started procrastinating really bad on assignments, skipping class so that I could take more depression naps. I was eating less, showering less, and overall just doing nothing to take care of myself. That procrastination cycle I was in went really deep, but I think that should have its own dedicated video with possible solutions too. These behaviors I was experiencing just led to worse grades, which would bring me back again to that cycle, but to an even more extreme level, except now I was too depressed to do anything about it. It eventually got to the point where by the end of my second year of college, I ended up crying to my professor because I needed to beg him to let me drop the class, because I literally couldn't get out of bed anymore. I felt so bad crying to my professor because I'm sure he teaches hundreds of other students every single quarter and they do just fine with the material, but I was crumbling over all these failed quizzes that I kept on getting, and I knew that I wasn't gonna pass the class no matter how hard I tried. So I just begged him and cried to please let me drop the class so that it wouldn't hurt my GPA, and I just physically could not take on completing another final. I wish I could say that after experiencing all of that, I've learned how to take care of my mental health better, and I understand the importance of asking for help now, but that's not really the case. I really feel for all of the first-gen college students. I feel like I didn't even get the worst of it, but it is so difficult to navigate college for the first time with minimal guidance like I experienced. But now I feel like I'm embarking on a whole new challenge where I'm basically trying to figure out where I fit into this whole chaotic world now post-graduating college. There's still a lot for me to learn, and I'm gonna get through it with the help of Odin and getting connected with their mental health experts and making more videos like this with more solutions rather than me just giving problems over problems. But I'm hoping through this process we can really figure it out together. There will definitely still be more videos to come. There's a lot that I still want to talk about when it comes to how I currently deal with failure and the kind of pressure that I put on myself and the values that I hold and how I want to continuously make my family proud, but kind of stress that brings sometimes. I think it's really important that we talk about the mental health troubles that we face, because I think the more that we talk about it, the more we'll realize that we're not alone and there's a lot of people who feel the same way that we do. So thank you so much for listening. I'll see you next time. Bye!